Oh, shit. I'm going to go turn off my speaker.
Coming up live now.
There we go. All right, got it.
Welcome, everybody. How are we all today?
Mark, how's it going? Let's
Good,
see if we got, let me find where the hell I'm at.
I don't know if there's a bit of a time change for everybody, but in the US last weekend, their time zone changed. So we pretty much set up the schedule of this based on the US time zone. And so, yeah, might have bumped it for an hour one way or the other for you. I'm not sure. I see we've got the Serum Ninjas joined us today.
Yeah, who is Serum Ninja?
Do you not know who Serum Ninja is?
I probably do. I'm having a brain fart.
EY is an MVP in the
okay, EY. Okay, cool.
And
cool.
And you realize why it's called the Serum Ninja, right? See the picture. The picture, his icon is a ninja motorcycle.
Ah, another motorcyclist.
He's another motorcyclist. So you can now bring out your motorcycle. We haven't seen a picture of your motorcycle yet. Have you got a picture to share?
Let me see.
How are you, Hans? Enterprise AR, Chris Pollock, how are you? Ken? Yeah, good. Throw your questions in. Love it. Arianis, welcome. Chuck your questions in the chat. We're keen to look at them. We've had a few people send in questions that they want us to bring up on air. So we will do that. But are you going to show us a picture of your motorcycle?
It's loading.
It's loading?
It's loading.
It's that big, right? Is it just loading the engine? How many cc's is it?
2,500.
2,500 cc's.
Yeah.
That is one. Is it a Triumph?
It's a Triumph.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was.
Hey, Scott, how are you?
Trying to share it in the wrong place. So let me see if I'm able to do this.
Bring it up and share it.
I could try. See, let me know if that works.
Wow.
That work?
Yeah. Well, I think it works. It's
Can you see it?
Yeah, it definitely works. Yeah, that's a very nice motorcycle.
It is.
Welcome.
Now let me figure out how to stop sharing.
Gentlemen. Man, that's very nice.
Thank you. Thank you. Very fun.
Have you been getting out much on it?
Out much on it. Every day.
Every day.
Every day, yes. That is the world's largest production motorcycle engine. And that is the world's fastest production motorcycle, meaning that you can go into a dealer and buy it off their floor, unmodified, biggest engine, fastest motorcycle.
Wow.
So that was enough for me.
EY, what are your thoughts on that?
Don't get me wrong.
Serious bike or a serious bike? I don't know if I don't know if the roads are straight enough in the UK to use a motorcycle like that.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Ninja's a nice bike, that's for sure. I mean, I definitely see them as I fly past them. I glance over and I see them. They're very nice bikes from what I can see, in that quick glance going by in a blur.
I love it. Ask Steve about PowerApps language translation. He's a pro. So what's this about PowerApps language translation? Is this something you've been playing with lately, Steve?
Yes. EY, it is a Triumph Rocket 3. So yeah, we had actually a fella. Let me get his name here because I said I was going to before the show.
Yep.
Let me find my screens. Where the hell am I? Hang on. There it is. Thomas Crickling, I think is how you pronounce it. He's a Norwegian fellow who had installed our English Rapid Start app on his Norwegian tenant. And of course, the Microsoft Power Platform automatically translated all of the stuff that was core. But Rapid Start has custom cases, custom opportunity entity, lots of custom forms, lots of custom stuff to it, and it didn't translate any of that, of course. So he had reached out to ask about, translation, And I said, well, you know, it's a lot of work. It's on the list, but he said, oh, I really, really like Rapid Start. And I wish we could get it translated. So I said, well, how about this? How about if I send you the translations file, maybe you can speed this along for me if you, or he actually volunteered to do that. Little did he know, he spent about 4 hours doing nothing but translations and sent that back to me, which I'm very appreciative of. I used his translations.
So is that just an XML file?
So it's when you go into the admin center and click on a solution, you can click to export translations, and it'll basically create an XML file you can open in Excel.
Yep.
And then you'll see the English, and then you'll see a column for your language, and you just type in your language version, and just look for the blank columns, because again, Microsoft's translated all the out of the box stuff, but
Gotcha.
anything custom you need to kind of put in there. And so that got me kicked off on, okay, well, since we're going to do this translation for Norwegian, which is no insult to Norway, but I don't think I would have started with Norwegian. So, but I use that as the excuse to go ahead and embark on that effort to translate Rapid Start now into 10 languages.
Right.
It was actually easier to do them all at once than one at a time. But man, what a pain.
So did you look at the Tungi's XRM Toolbox tool around translation?
I did, for some reason or other, and I don't know if it's his tool or something on my end. It was throwing some errors. I even tried just an out-of-the-box app, exporting and then re-importing it without making any changes, and it was still throwing errors. So I ended up, frankly, doing most of it right in the customizations XML, which is extremely dangerous, of course. You know, the slightest missed, quotation mark or something like that, and suddenly your whole solution won't import.
So what I haven't looked at Tungi's tool. What's it designed to do? Does it kind of like go out, grab an RSS feed off Google Translate or something?
No, it doesn't actually do the translation, but have you ever downloaded the translation file from a solution?
Yep.
Microsoft, you just get this really long file. Well, his tool goes in and pulls all those same records, but it puts them in categories. So you got a tab for entities, a tab for all these different things.
You can do them in some type of order.
Yeah, a little cleaner. Plus, you can get selective about what you want to export. I don't want to export the whole thing. I only want, for example, to translate the account entity.
Could you just say translate what you've custom dev'd?
Yeah. So I loaded our solution into his tool to only export things from our solution. And then he's got lots of different options on what you can export out, but it doesn't actually do any of the translation. You still have to translate the phrase into the cell in Excel, and then go back and upload it back in his tool.
So I remember back in the day, before many translations were around and Microsoft, were looking at expanding the number of translations. It used to be a big selling point even. Hey, John, Debbie, and Art, I see you've all joined us since we've got chatting here. Welcome. And they used to call on the MVPs in the various countries. So I remember particularly Poland, Kuba in Poland, Jakub, he would go and he would say, looking at your translation, like you've done okay, but in some languages, like there's a feminine and masculine of a word, and it's kind of like, you've got the right word, but would never use it in that context or how you've got it in the application. So he would go through and kind of do this kind of final review of knowing the product and knowing the correct way to say it in that context. Because even if you hand it off to a third-party translation service, sometimes they don't know the nuances of, the tech that we're working with.
Yeah, even when you look at just the out-of-the-box translation file and sort it by, say, the US word, and you'll see, for example, something like status. In the US, it's all status. It'll be like 30 lines that all say status. And of the different languages, most of them say the same thing, but certain ones have a different word for that case. And I'm sure it has to do with the context, because you're just looking at a list of words, but you're not seeing the context of the words. And I could see how that could easily become a challenge, especially if you don't speak those languages natively. And Google Translate or, any of these translation services, you use them at your own risk. I mean, it's kind of the best you have to get started with some of these things. And it's probably safe for like a single word.
Yeah.
But as soon as you start getting into sentences or things like that, it's definitely very risky.
Yeah.
But I mean, all you can do is the best you can do, get it out there, and then look for feedback from people in those languages to go ahead and make corrections.
Yeah.
And I expect we'll get some.
Hey, Norm, thanks for joining us. Good to see you there.
Yeah, Norm from Canada. Canada was one of the toughest languages for us.
I've just dropped into the feed there a post. Hopefully that comes up as a post. I'm not sure. Can you click on it? Does that jump straight to Daniel's post there on LinkedIn?
Yep, it does.
Okay, so you can see there, he's sorry about saying this, but he's basically, just give you some background. Daniel's a Microsoft partner in Australia, in Melbourne, Australia, and he is also an ISV. He's created some very cool tools in the ISV space, particularly for navigation and whatnot within the application. He's been in the program a long time, and he's talking about this October 2020 announcement from Partner Center. So it's 2 partners, and he's not an enterprise partner. He's a smaller partner, got a thriving little business in this space where a lot of Microsoft partners are. And he's talking about Microsoft basically, for CSP tier 1 coming out with rules around driving sales targets. And, he refers to them as used car salesmen and trying to flogging more licenses and etc. One thing I will say about this, and sometimes there's a lot of confusion. I found this, I remember working in Australia and I would have customers go, can you ask somebody in Microsoft to do blah, 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 because people at Microsoft Australia. And I said, you got to understand that a subsidiary of Microsoft, which is a Microsoft subsidiary runs a country, for example. So there'll be a subsidiary that runs Microsoft Australia. The New Zealand subsidiary is Microsoft New Zealand. They are not the people developing the software back at the mothership, right? And I say the mothership.
They're primarily sales resources.
That's right. As in subsidiaries around the world, and I'm being very generalistic here, are sales mechanisms, right? Yes, they have engineering, they have technical support, that type of thing. But product R&D and development, that's done, I'll refer to as the mothership. And it's not necessarily just Redmond, because now Microsoft have dev centers all over the world, particularly big in India, Israel that I know of. A couple of European countries have big dev centers within them. But let's just say that's the mothership. That's where R&D, product development, etc., engineering is all done. It's not done out at a subsidiary level.
Well, it's certainly any decisions related to the CSP program are made in Redmond.
They're made up there, right? And so what happens is that the thing is, the whole Microsoft selling motion is quite different than the engineering motion. And I know we kind of tend to focus on the engineering side of things, from being MVPs and whatnot, but the whole selling motion is why Microsoft is as successful as they are. And I think what they've done is that they've looked at their cost to benefit of small partners. Now, I agree the execution might not have been fantastic, but for every small partner that they have on the books, there's probably resources that have to be allocated to manage those. And whether the return on investment for Microsoft is not there, I don't know, but this has been happening for years. I remember when I was a small CRM partner, starting my business in New Zealand years ago, they used to require, if you wanted to be at the gold tier, you had to have the support package. And back then, we were supporting the Microsoft tech support more than they were supporting in us. In other words, we would solve the problems and tell them how we solve the problems, not the other way around. And
this has been a long journey for those guys. We were one of the first direct CSP partners. I don't know if you knew that, because then when they launched the direct CSP program way back when, they were really trying to get out of customers buying directly from Microsoft. it was creating a burden on Microsoft internally to manage all those licenses and customers. So they wanted to kind of get it off their plate. Disty was out there, but actually Direct CSP came first. And they didn't have a lot of uptake. Some of the big partners got on fairly quickly, but they didn't have much uptake of the program. And I remember a fellow named Brent Combest, who's with Microsoft. I think he runs the central US region now, but he was on the worldwide team before. Came to one of the events and made a big announcement about Direct CSP. They were really lowering the threshold of entry.
Yeah.
And this was shortly after it launched, that they didn't see the traction, so they lowered the bar significantly. Well, that's when we jumped in. We were one of the first small partners to be a Direct CSP. And then, of course, lots of folks joined in because the bar was so low.
Yeah.
But then ever since that time, they've been trying to raise that bar back up. There's a guy named Toby Richards, who works for Gabriella, who's really been a pain in the ass about this for quite some time, about really just trying to get rid of all the small partners that are in Direct CSP. And it kind of pisses me off because you guys asked us to come. And we're in there, we're doing our selling. And so, yeah, I got about 2 years ago, one of the things they did, first of all, they made the ability to become a Direct CSP more difficult without doing anything about the people that already had gotten inside the gate. They made the gate harder to open. And then the next thing they did was they decided that all Direct CSPs had to purchase advanced support, mandatory, minimum $15,000 a year US.
Crazy.
Mandatory.
Yeah.
Well, at the time, I was making probably about $15,000 of margin on a CSP program.
Yep.
But given no choice, I was either going to get out of it or sign up for this direct support, which I did, paid my $15,000.
Yep.
Completely useless. I mean, we don't need support for anything. We never need support for anything, at least nothing they could handle.
I saw Dan or in his thread say the same thing. Absolutely no benefit. The support has not benefited the business or the customer.
Yeah. So that was step one to try and get rid of a bunch of us. And I know quite a few partners said, well, the hell with that. I'm not making enough money. I'm out. And they did drop.
Yeah.
But I was talking to Gus Gonzalez,
Yep.
who was another one of those small partners. As you know, he's a one-man band.
This was in Phoenix last year because I was there at that conversation at a bar that this conversation went down.
And he said that he's just going to not pay it and see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, I paid it. And then at the renewal time, I get the call from the guy that said, hey, you need to renew this. And I said, well, I don't know if I'm good. He says, well, if you don't, you're going to be out of the program and everything will stop and the world's going to stop turning. And I said, well, I guess I'll take my chances. He said, you're only going to be able to service your existing customers. You won't be able to add any new ones. So, all right, well, I can live with that. Well, I was still able to add new ones. So he was full of shit. They obviously didn't have technical enforcement in place. He just wanted to sell that support.
Yeah.
So then I get the same email, obviously, that Dan got here a few days ago, saying that once again, here comes another pass at them to try and cull the herd out of Direct CSP. Minimum $300,000 a year US dollar revenue. You have to be doing 300 grand a year.
Yep.
And mandatory sign up for that program. So they're now going to, I guess, enforce signing up for that program, or you're going to basically be off-boarded to. And what they're suggesting as your alternative is to go to Disty. Well,
and the last thing I tell you, if in my career in the space, I avoided Disties like the plague, just to be straight up. Like they were nothing but how many do you want? Like, it's how big can we make this deal? They got no interest. It's like how much margin can they pull?
They're a total clusterfuck.
Yeah.
Disty. We started with Disty on the side running next to Direct because there were certain advantages at the time that I saw between having both programs. Maybe some customers I wanted to be Direct, maybe some I didn't.
Yeah.
Because Disty at the time, Disty was then responsible for support. They were the CSP seller. They were responsible for support instead of Microsoft. Of course, they knew jack about Dynamics. So they were
Yeah.
completely useless. But
Totally.
at least it got me off the hook because,
They were
that's
good at
another thing.
explaining licenses. They were experts at explaining licenses.
But that was another obligation of being a CSP. If you're a direct CSP, you also are responsible for support to those customers. And I thought that was maybe going to be a bigger burden than I would want with certain deals, but they just clustered it so bad. I mean, continuously, you'd call them up to reduce the client's licenses from 10 to 9, and they'd cancel the whole thing, or it was just a continuous mess. But the other thing that's happened in the meantime, and I don't know if Daniel's in this position, Dan, we switched over. Now our entire motion is around a single $40 license and a bunch of $10 ones.
Mm-hmm.
That's everything that I'm interested in doing going forward. I have no interest in selling any licenses because there's no margin in a $10 license. There's no margin there. I don't know how many I sell. So I would like to just get out of the licensing business completely. Fine, Microsoft, you succeeded. I want out.
Yeah.
But I don't want to bring Disty in the picture. I want to be able to take those customers and say, hey, listen, you're going to have to buy your licenses direct from Microsoft. Well, here's the problem. And it has to do with the price list. They come out with a new price list, every 6 months, something like that. And every time they come out with a new price list, they're adding new items, deleting items, and changing items. But the only thing you can buy after the date of that price list new are the things that are available now. Correct. New on the price list.
Correct. Yep.
However, if you bought something last year, you still have that thing at that price, and you can add and delete those. You just can't add any new products completely unless they're on the price list. So how's this going to work? I've got a bunch of customers in direct CSP, all bought licenses off older price lists, paying whatever those prices were with whatever the benefits were. I know that if I told them, well, you just have to go to Microsoft, they're not going to find the licenses they have because they don't exist anymore. They'll have to buy more expensive licenses to do the same thing. I'm assuming that's probably going to be the same with Disty. That Disty, I'd be surprised if Microsoft was sophisticated enough to create a motion where I can just push a button and Disty just gets in the middle of my relationship and all my licenses remain the same. So I think either way, customers are going to be looking at having to reset to all new licenses on the current price list whenever they make that change. It's going to be a mess.
Disty's, have they got any minimum buys as well at a Disty? I just think some of the Disties like Ingram Micro and stuff, they're big companies. Do they have minimum spends or what?
No, not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. Even Microsoft, Microsoft does for certain products, but for most of them, it's not. But when you're selling a customer, one $40 license and 20 $10 licenses, there's the margin on that is insignificant. But you're also now in the position of that customer calls up and says, hey, we just hired Sally. We need a new license. Well, the only place they can get the fucking thing is you. And you got to log into the portal and go add this license for them to have it even show up for them to be able to do it. So there's no money at all. It's a loser. The half hour you spend doing that consumed the value of whatever margin you made on it. So there's just no money in licensing unless you're selling the big licenses. Enterprise licensing, F&O licensing, those big licenses. Maybe on the Azure side, I don't know. We never sold any Azure licensing, but
so here's the thing: is that those deals are really out there. Those big deals. I've been working now for the last month with customer insights quite a bit, and what I'm noticing, it's eye-watering the size of these deals that have been done. So if you take customer insights at the moment, they're based on profile. I think I've heard two figures, 1,500 and 1,800 for per month for 100,000 profiles. And you're like, wow, that's good numbers. But the minute they become millions of profiles, which some companies have, right? I can think of a heap of companies that would have big customer bases. So anybody in banking, anyone in the hotel sector, non-for-profit, all those kind of things, the minute you get into, you know, a million or multi-million profiles, there's some decent coin transacting every 30.
Yeah, but no partner is making anything on that, because when they get that big, they're going straight to EA, because
Yeah.
you can't discount in CSP. The only place they can get discounts is on an EA. And
So you've only got the
they're going straight to
implementation
EA.
work then, because you need somebody that knows what they're doing to implement it. And when I say
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
that knows, we're not talking about, you know, somebody that can configure the application. It's somebody that knows stuff
Yeah.
around data and AI, machine learning, and, you know,
Oh, there's definitely money to be made for a partner in that business, but just not on the licensing revenue, because they won't touch the license. Microsoft's that's going straight to an EA, and the partner ain't gonna get squat.
yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting how the landscape's changing.
Yeah, I probably need to write a post on it, although Dan almost wrote a post on it on his LinkedIn there.
Yeah.
He's clearly frustrated. I feel his pain, and I think that the difference is, and I don't know, maybe he would want to tell us here. It feels like he wants to remain in the licensing game if it was unchanged. I'm looking to get out of it, because it's not a money maker. It's a responsibility to manage, and we're just not making any money on the Microsoft license sales. So I'm looking to get out of it. And we've got a lot of legacy customers in there with bigger licenses.
Yeah.
But again, probably our total annual margin out of that thing is enough to pay for the required advanced support. And regardless, I don't think we're at 300,000 US of sold licensing through CSP anyway. So either way, we're not going to meet the requirement. He must not either. He wouldn't be complaining about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, this is the thing, is that when everything's based on US and you've got exchange rates in play then as well, you know, somebody like Australia, where he's based, is still sit at a tier 1 geography. And so therefore it's a multiplier when you take the exchange rate into account as well.
yeah. And Frank talking about small customers can't afford the 200 grand to talk with a large partner. Well, I think, my recommendation to small customers is just going to be to go direct. I mean, you can go to, Microsoft and buy your licenses direct. Frankly, partners, other than telling you what licenses you need, there's not a lot of value of partner ads. If anything, I have customers now calling me up saying, hey, can you add 2 of these licenses? It's taking away my day. They're waiting for me to do it. They should just do it themselves. I mean, they could go in there and have it done and not even bother me with it. I don't make any money on it. There's no upside to either of us of me doing it. But if they dealt with yet another partner for licensing, well, now they still got to go to that partner. That partner now has got to go through Disty, so it's going to get even more bouncy.
I can see how, as a partner, it starts to muddy the waters when you got too many relationships or too many people out with their soup spoon wanting to get a slice of the action of your customer that you've never had to kind of defend it in the past.
Oh, hey, I had a customer call me one time that was with a partner who had Disty was involved. Somehow or another, the customer was talking to the Disty. I guess ordering a license. When you have that indirect, and you go in there in your customer portal, it says contact the Disty. Well, you're not supposed to contact the Disty really.
Yeah.
But they were contacting the Disty. The Disty recommended us to the customer as a Dynamics partner over the one they had.
Wow.
So I bowed out of that one because I don't need any bad blood. I told the customer, they explained the situation. They weren't happy with their partner, but Disty had recommended us, and I'm like, yeah, well, we're busy. I don't want to get in that situation. But so you don't, like you say, you don't want to have a bunch of people in the mix with your customer.
No. What, another request came in through the week from one of our listeners who's actually online with us right now, when he was saying, what's the situ now? 2 months your new person has been enrolled running the ISV program for Microsoft.
When I talked to him,
what's happening? What changes are we seeing?
When I talked to him, we agreed that we were going to circle up every 90 days and have another Steve has a chat and see how they're doing. And I just looked at the calendar the other day and realized, yeah, it's been about 60. So about another month from now, I'll be getting him on the phone. I'd love to think that that's going to get him shaking in his boots and scrambling to get a bunch of stuff done. But, I did notice, and if anybody else has looked at Appsource lately, I didn't notice any obvious changes to the landing page, but when you click on an app page, the page that loads is different.
Yeah, I just put a copy of your listing up there as a reference.
I wouldn't say it's any better than it was before. I don't know that it's any worse. It's just different. So I don't know. My gut's telling me
there's
it's
a lot of white
progress.
space on the page.
Yeah, I'm feeling like maybe that's a work in progress. Like
looks like their CSS has gone wrong or something. And I don't know if you'd also noticed on Appsource on the front page, I'm just going to it here. If you go to the landing page on the right-hand side, it allows you to filter down by app. So refined by product. And it's got web apps, Power Platform, Dynamics 365, Microsoft Suite 365. It's been there for a while. I find it funny, though, that the Power Platform logo is using a Power BI logo.
Well, so for a while now, and this may be a change, that used to say Power BI.
Apps. No, I thought you said PowerApps. Oh, okay.
Nope. There were 5.
One's gone.
They got rid of the one for Power Platform, and looks like they took the one that they were using for Power BI and made it Power Platform. So it looks like they're consolidating. I think they had Power BI and Power Apps.
Yeah, they did.
Now it looks like what they're doing is they're just consolidating those into Power Platform, but yeah, they didn't update the logos. So obviously they took the old pick list from Power BI and just renamed it, but didn't change the icon. But it looks like they're consolidating all Power Platform stuff under that checkbox.
Wow, it's good to see the change in the world. I mean, this is just going to boost sales no end for partners now on the ISV program.
I'm just so glad I'm here.
Yeah, Dataflex is missing. Chris, tell us about industry accelerators. You got a question there. Do you want to expand on that? I know you wanted to ask a question around it.
There we go. I wasn't scrolling my chat. I was wondering why nobody was talking.
Okay, there's plenty there. Ken, you like my reference to the soup spoon out? I see. Nick, I think you're right about using your credit card for smaller customers, to put their credit card on file and just, go through the web access. That they can still reference you as the partner, though. When you buy those licenses, down the left-hand corner, I think, from where you buy it, there's specify your partner of record. That feature is still there, and you can look up a partner and
you'll get, as a partner, you'll get revenue credit and seat count credit towards your competency. Is what that gives. It doesn't give you any money, but it gives you competency credit. Is the reason you'd want to do that.
Yeah.
Alex, I think Alex is right about finance and operations. There's definitely a lot more margin in that. And, I remember once again in the early days of selling CRM and doing it up with engaging with partners in the NAV and AX space. I'd always say, mate, how do you make money in CRM? Because we've got way better margins in our space.
Yeah, but I think what Alex is not actually talking about making money on the license itself. He's talking about making money on consulting to people to get off of an expensive license.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So yeah, there is licensing revenue to be made, Alex. That's the way to do it too.
Okay, so Chris, he's asking about, he sees the accelerators, but he doesn't see Dynamics HR. Well, the thing is, right, there was a full HR solution about a year ago, and that was in the CE camp, and then Microsoft, with their arrangement of owning LinkedIn, there was seen that there was a bit of a conflict. So LinkedIn now has a whole part of that piece, and then it explicitly has moved over to the what we would have formerly called the ERP part of the organization. So it's not sitting as a CDS direct solution, to my knowledge. Correct me, anybody, if I'm wrong. But it's definitely gone over more to that side of the house. So
so the HR was always part of core ERP.
Yeah.
They spun out those apps, Attract, Onboard, Talent, whatever those those little mini apps as kind of feeders, but they all still ran off of the core HR of F&O. So that, I think that'd be one reason why there aren't any accelerators for HR, because HR isn't really on the customer engagement side as we know it, which is what they built all the accelerators for, is the Dynamics 365 customer engagement apps, not for any of the F&O apps.
Yeah. I'm just looking under human
Oh
resources.
wait, now Lorenus is updating my old information that it's on CDS but not on model-driven app.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll put in the chat here. There's the link to Microsoft's human resources application.
I've not been a big fan of the accelerators. I think that, and I'm curious to know how successful the accelerators, and I'm not talking about I'm talking about the generally, the healthcare, the nonprofit, financial service accelerators. I really felt like Microsoft was stepping into ISV turf when they did that. And ended up, they talked about having coordinated with a bunch of ISVs to help build the data models. Well, they're kind of displacing some of these ISVs in the process. And I don't know what the end goal was, because citizen developer is not going to take that financial services accelerator and build anything. They're still, complex data models.
Yeah.
They just really kind of replaced some of the IP that was provided by ISVs with a free accelerator.
Yeah.
And I just didn't like the whole idea. I wasn't sure what the goal was that they wanted to try to, I mean, originally the way they were explained to me was, we've got, as really as an ISV tool, we've got all these ISVs building, for example, financial services products, and they're all using different terminology for the same thing. So we've got this common data model for financial services that, a client is called a client is called a client. And if you build your ISV solution on top of this, then all of your different ISV solutions will all know of the client as the same thing. And I thought there was potentially some wisdom there, that not that it would make your solution so much easier to build, but there just wouldn't be multiple custom entities created in a customer's environment all for the same thing being brought in by different ISV solutions. But then it was, after that, it started getting much more talked about as an accelerator for citizen developer to go build stuff. And it kind of got away, I think, from the ISV story that I thought it started at and made some sense for.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a big fan of those accelerators. I played around with a few of them.
The concept's been around for years, as in from early days of the application, because we used to demo. Look what Dynamics could do, and then of course, a lot of those apps back then were built using students straight out of grad school, grad students and stuff, and they weren't necessarily architecturally robust, and so we'd have to say to a customer, "Hang on a second. That's a proof of concept bit of code. It's not."
You couldn't even use them, right? They came as managed code that you couldn't do anything with. It was definitely a look and see what can be done, and go hire your partner to go build something like this.
Yeah,
there wasn't any code you could even use out of them.
I think the thing with accelerators, I think they are driven. This is my guess. They are driven by Microsoft field enterprise sellers that say, I need something really robust to demonstrate. It needs to be much more than just a demo that somebody put together in 5 hours. And I need something really robust in the sector because we're going to land, 20, 50, 80,000, 100 licenses type thing. And so I think that's what they built. I think the idea of a common data model for these things is an awesome idea. The problem is Microsoft has no technical way of loading a data model into CDS without bringing all the other baggage with it, right?
That's another thing that had been talked about for a long time.
Forms, views, all that other stuff.
Well, the first versions of the accelerators that came out, and I think it was, I can't remember, was it the healthcare accelerator, the first one that came out? And it had dependencies on sales, service, and field service
Yeah.
It took dependencies on all those expensive first-party apps that forced everybody into a plan that wanted to use it.
Yep.
Well, they did ultimately release in the newer ones CDS-only versions, where they didn't take any dependencies on the first party. You kind of really did get just a raw data schema. And maybe if you want to go build a healthcare app, you load that up, it'll give you some entities and relationships, kind of save you some time. But I didn't like them building sample apps that were actually, viable, usable apps that an ISV you would think would build. But yeah, I think that, it's funny when I look at our rapid start and I look at some of the things that, and we offer that as an accelerator, right? It's not intended to be a finished application. It is a finished application if your business happens to be exactly
It's a
what
free
I
app,
thought.
wasn't it? Haven't you made that free?
It's free, yeah, but it's intended for people to customize. But we built some of our own capabilities in there, and one of them was hashtagging, which is very, very popular. People hashtag all over the place.
Yep.
And when people look at that app, one of the top couple of things they come back with initially is we love the idea of hashtagging. Okay, great. Then about 2 months later, they said, how do we remove hashtagging from the form? We're not using it. So there's this idea, I think, of demoware.
Yeah.
That people get very excited when they see
Totally.
something, and then there's the reality when it hits their organization and they
Are you
don't
like
use it.
editable grids by the sounds? It sounds like you're talking about editable grids.
Yeah. So
Everybody
when you
wants
look at
to
those
use.
accelerators, and Microsoft using a healthcare accelerator to go pitch a healthcare company, well, they're going to impress the company with, oh, look, they're using our terminology. And oh, look, there's a prescription management app.
Yeah.
But in the reality is they're not going to use any of that shit. They're just going to end up rebuilding everything to fit their business because it isn't going to fit. So,
Yeah.
uh-oh, Ken's agreeing with Frank. Let's see what Frank said.
About the non-architecturally robust, I said earlier on. Hey, ISV Connected, one of those pet projects that you've worked on. Did I see correctly this week that it's full free membership to be on that platform?
So what I did with that is I think I was too ambitious when I started putting that together, because I built a lot of capabilities and features into that thing, all with this idea that there's going to be tons and tons of people in it, whereas if you have tons and tons of people, certain features make sense.
Yeah.
I think I kind of put the cart before the horse, and based on all those features that I had put in there, I launched that thing with a nominal cost for membership, because it's a lot of shit to maintain for nothing. But I've since decided, and I didn't really promote it heavily because I've been heads down in other things, but I was getting back to the idea of let me go promote this thing again, build up some people. And so I formed an advisory board. Of course, you were on it. A couple of other folks, Rick McCutcheon is on it, Dana Wilmer is on it, Jason Gumpert is on it. And we all kind of agreed, which I was already thinking in my mind, that there was too much happening in that site to get started, need to skinny it down and just make it free. So yeah, exactly. I'm making everything for free, Ken. So starting next month, all of our custom project services are now going to be free. No, just kidding. But yeah, I think we need to build community there first. And I think there's certain core capabilities, features, the forums and stuff like that should just always be free.
Yeah.
And the monetization around that'll be more around once there's enough people and it makes sense. Hey, do people want to have a portals course by Nick Dolman or something?
Yeah.
And I haven't mentioned that to Nick or asked him about it, but just as an example of something that would be valuable to people that they might want to pay for, that would be separate. So
yeah. Well, Nick's got his own training company now. He's actually formed a full training company.
I thought he was partnered up with those other folks.
Yeah, with a bunch.
Oh, that's the one.
There's a bunch of MVPs got together. They formed a training company.
So 365 dot or something dot. I know there's a big dot in the logo.
Let me see if I can find it. We'll chuck the link in there for them. Yeah, there it is. Control C. I'll put that in
Like
the
365 dot training or something like that. Or
365 dot training. There you go.
all right, cool.
Now, I don't know that we can get through this entire show today without addressing the elephant in the room.
Okay, you're talking about me now? Listen,
talking
I've been
I'm
thinking
talking
about
about all
cutting back on the
Americans,
carbs.
all the Americans running out and voting today.
Oh, I thought you were talking about me needing to cut back on carbs.
I'd be talking about the elephant in my room then, if that was the case.
Well, yeah, today should be an interesting day. It is election day here in the US. If anybody online here is not familiar with our politics over here, I'd be a little surprised. We've got, I'll just be very curious to see how it turns out. I don't expect it to be a happy day for half the country.
Yeah.
Which half is up
It looks
to,
like you're a pretty divided country, right?
I don't think I've been obviously born in this country and been around for a long time. I'm not necessarily a political watcher, but I've voted, I've paid attention. I don't recall ever seeing this level of divisiveness between the parties.
Yeah.
Or the nastiness or vitriol both sides.
Of politics.
And Trump's entering the foray certainly lit that fire.
Yeah.
But regardless of what happens, I don't see that going away. I think it's changed the discourse of politics forever.
So last election, I was sitting in Joey's in Bellevue.
Yeah.
And we watched the election results come in. And Nick, are you still online? Nick, I'd be keen to know, was MVP Summit in November back at that time, however many years ago? I'm not sure if it was or wasn't, because I don't know why I would have been in Bellevue. But I remember, in Washington State that night, there was a riot and a shooting after the announcement of Trump winning. And then this massive aghast of particularly being in that state, which I think, weren't that pro-Trump. It was very interesting to see the shocked nature of everybody in the following days of that, which quite surprised me. It was an experience. I mean, I remember it quite clearly. And here we are, a few years on.
I mean, it was like watching a football game, and then suddenly in the last 2 seconds of the game, they throw a Hail Mary pass and catch it and win the game out from under when nobody was expecting or saw it coming. So I think it just shocked so many people, but it really definitely lit a fuse over here. You are on one side of the fence or you are on the other. And depending on which side you are on, you are not allowed to agree with anything that people on the other side say. Even if they're saying the sky is blue, you have to disagree. It's a terrible state of affairs. It's polarized. Everything that you can think of now has that slant to it. I see it, of course, now that I'm riding my motorcycle around and going to lots of biking events. There seems to be a disproportionate number of bike enthusiasts that are Trump supporters.
Yeah.
And you just see.
So on another topic.
Yep.
We passed the first of the month, so a bunch of new MVPs.
Yeah.
Some real standout ones. Claire Carmichael from Scotland. She was, involved with Mark Christie and Ian Connolly from day one with the Scottish Summit. I'm just going to put a bit of a plug in there for Scottish Summit. It's gone worldwide this time. If you haven't checked it out, the number of sessions, like 500 sessions odd, in multiple languages. I think they got 5 or 6 different languages for a range of those sessions. So absolutely amazing results. Matt Colin Jones. Now this guy, I don't know if you've come across Matt Colin Jones, might not have, but particularly for new people coming into the community, he spent 365 days and he published a YouTube video every day for 365 days.
Wow.
And they are really brilliant videos. So they're rating for about 8 to 15 minutes. I've actually looked at a bunch of them myself. And, they go and they unpack, things like flow, particularly he's focused on flow in detail. And if you can't find it on his channel, I'm almost saying it doesn't exist in flow. So he decides the day before he becomes an MVP that he needs to take a break from his 365 days of producing video, and because he's planning on going to more long form video rather than these short snippets, is what he says. And the next day he gets awarded MVP. So how's that? Fantastic, right?
Yeah. I mean, and all he did was a video every single freaking day for a year.
Massive, right?
Yeah.
There's a lady, and I'm pretty sure she's in Singapore, Manamani. I've actually had dinner with her in December when I was up in Singapore. She's done a heck of a lot in the community up there, and particularly around women in tech. So really excited to see her come into the program. Brilliant operator. Another one that's top of mind from me is Mary. Mary, Thompson, I just did a podcast with her recently. She went through a bitch of a time earlier in the year, lost her job with COVID, went months and months without work, was feeling very disorientated with the world and the effect of everything. She become part of Microsoft's Humans of IT program and landed herself a job about 2 months ago, and then been awarded MVP, which got to take my hat off to her once again. Somebody that's very, very deserving. I'm trying not to miss anybody here. Let me see. Is there anyone else that I haven't thought of? Yes, there is. There's Kusan. He's actually in New Zealand. I caught up with him at the start of the year. We had a beer together, and once again, big contributor in the community. And he also has been awarded MVP. So very excited about that. And to see, this whole, bunch of flesh, blood, and talent, joining and coming into the program.
So when do they bring on new MVPs every 90 days?
Every at the first of the month.
First of the month. But when do they roll off MVPs? Once
Once a year. So what is it? March, all MVPs go into lockdown, and then as in no more submissions can go in. And then April, May, June, they decide who's staying and who's going. And then you find out whether you're still in the program. But my understanding is if you get made an MVP or nominated or be successful as an MVP, you then get a window of the rest of this cycle plus the next one. So you can't be biffed out in the same year as such. Although I have seen
some people that got
someone got chucked out this week, right, for commenting about Turkey or something.
Yeah. Well, but also just some people that got chucked out in the very first renewal that they were able to get chucked out at just because they got there. They did whatever they did to get it and then stopped. And I guess they thought that once you get it, you'll just hang on to it, but not the case.
No, we didn't have a beer together.
All of us on our toes every year.
We had dinner together.
So it's also, I chucked in the chat a link for my ISV Connected. Go sign up. It's free. Join the conversations. Help me get this thing going.
Yeah, if you want to contribute, even right, you've got openings for people that want to contribute, particularly in the forum section. I know I plan to. There's a bunch of questions. I'm often doing interviews with ISVs, and some of the things that come up on those interviews, I'm like, wow, what you're saying there is that is available. Right. I had somebody recently that said to me, it'd be good to know when stuff has been deployed, when my things have been downloaded. And, there's a lot of people that don't know everything because sometimes the information is not as easy to get through. And sometimes it's a one-off thing that you do in listing your app and whatnot. And so we hope that the forums are going to allow very much the sharing of knowledge, right? To go.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I still talk to ISVs every day that almost, it seems like, that are like, yeah, we don't know if we want to get on Appsource or not because we don't know if we want to pay the revenue share. That seems to be a common misunderstanding from ISVs that are selling solutions that operate on the platform, is that they're only responsible for revenue sharing if they join Appsource or publish on Appsource, and that is just flat wrong. That is wrong information. You are responsible for rev sharing as an ISV on the platform, regardless whether
Yeah.
you use Appsource or not. And people just don't seem to understand that. It is a new mandatory tax across all existing Microsoft ISVs, Appsource aside. It has nothing to do with it.
But how much do you reckon this is working? Like, I
No,
can't
I don't
imagine.
think it's working. I don't think it's working yet because I don't think they've put their foot down on the enforcement of it. I mean,
But do you think they're going to? The person that put it in place has left the building.
Yeah, but the person that took over said he doesn't plan to make any changes to that.
Yeah.
I think that they want the revenue from that to help support that motion. And I think Toby is not a guy who would have launched that program. I don't think he's that tough a guy to have launched that program, but since some other guy launched it and it's out there, I don't think he feels the need to go tinker with it. He can just say, hey, I was there when I got here, you know, and worry about other things. So
a bit like Stalin and Lenin.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So
Stalin didn't invent communism. That was Lenin. So Stalin just pointed to Lenin all the time when, you know, he had his, oh no, I'm just doing what Lenin wanted, you know.
I'm sorry, this is here when I got here, you know, nothing I can do about it.
I'm just carrying on because you wanted it, you know.
But it would be on Toby now as the guy in charge to decide when and if and how they're going to try and enforce that across the whole ISV ecosystem that sits on top of Dynamics outside of Appsource.
Yeah. And it's very hard to
obvious
enforce something that needs a lot of engineering work that already is not proving necessarily that's making a heap of money. Because they've got to go to engineering and come up with a mechanism, which it's not
hard. I talked to Matt Barber about this a while back.
Yeah.
And he said, we've already got all that. You know, I mean, they've got,
I would love to believe you, but the thing is,
in the online environment, they can pull right now every environment out there.
They can, but if you're going to start, you know, you change the organization of Microsoft and what your role has to do, because all of a sudden someone's got to whack on the police hat and go, right, now I'm going to come out and start writing tickets.
Well, what they're going to do is what they're doing now is they're going to send nice emails. Please fill out this form and report your earnings.
Denied.
And if you fill out that form and you say, I made $1 last year.
Yeah, Dan did it.
Then they will send you a bill for 10 cents.
Yep.
You know, you'll get an invoice from Microsoft for 10 cents.
Dan actually.
Well, now you got an invoice from Microsoft, well, now you got a problem because now they can definitely chase you, dun you, go after you to pay it, and this, that, and the other. But I think that it's still honor system at the moment, and probably will be. I think it's going to stay honor system until
they remove
Toby. No, I think it's going to stay honor system until Toby is able to. If he's able to create enough value from Microsoft on their side of the equation to justify it, then I think is when they would try and bring the hammer down. But right now, they know they're not providing enough value. Appsource is not doing what it needs to do. The other parts
not even close.
The other parts of the value proposition aren't worth very much. They just don't have a value in exchange for that revenue share, so they can't very well go and enforce it until they have that. But I think that's his real goal is I don't want to mess that program. I'm just going to leave it just like it is. We're not going to take it any farther. We're not going to do any less. In the meantime, we're going to work on trying to build up the value over here. Yeah. But once he does that, then he's going to go tap somebody mean to come back into the team. And here, your job is to go start enforcement. One other thing before we're offline here, because we only got 2 minutes left.
What do you want to cover?
We are doing a webinar on this Thursday for partners, specifically talking to partners who want to utilize Rapid Starts. Now that it's free, I got a bunch of partners saying, hey, can I use this? And so if anybody's interested in seeing what Rapid Start is about, maybe using it, building on it, whatever you might want to do.
Nice.
We're going to have a webinar and explain what it is, how it works, and also how to unwire the couple of little things we have in there for our own cross-selling and promotion of other things within the app so that your customers aren't being sent to us. It's the least we can do. And I was actually talking to my development partner. He says, so we're not going to make any money on these people. I said, well, probably not, because you know, they're going to be MVPs. They already know, you know, everything we know, so they're not going to need our help with anything. And so the only value that we will really get out of that potentially would be some nice reviews on Appsource, which is very difficult to get.
Yeah.
Just in general, it's hard to get reviews from anybody. And it'll help our stats at Appsource, but that'll be all we'll get out of those. But we'll also get feedback, and it'll help us make the product better. Even if people are using it out there for free, partners are building on it, whatever, they're going to run into things, and hopefully they'll feed it back to us, and we can just make the app better. And you know, we'll continue to make money on the customers that are buying it direct from us, or installing it direct from us, or doing it themselves. But I don't want to, you know, any partner can use it. There's no partner program. There's no anything. It's released under what the commons, some sort of freaking license out there.
Yeah. Awesome.
So,
Well,
all right,
thank
cool.
you.
We've reached the end of the show.